Fujino Ayumu is a fourth grader who draws manga, something that she does for the praise of her classmates. Fujino draws the best. You should become a manga artist. You're so talented, are some of the things that she hears from her peers. Fujino gets called into the teacher's office, and she's told someone else wants to draw for the school newspaper, a truant student named Kyomoto. For once there's someone who draws manga like her, and she clearly doesn't like it. Fujino insults Kyomoto because a wimp who can't even come to school can't draw good manga. Fast forward about a week, the school newspaper gets handed out as usual, and Fujino realizes something. She's not good anymore. Because in comparison to Kyomoto's art, she's average. She fixates on the idea that now she's just an average kid without anything special to call her own. She tied her identity to the fact that she drew manga, but after she sees Kyomoto's art, that identity is destroyed. Fujino, however, can't accept this, because if she's not better than Kyomoto right now, then she will be. She reads, draws, and obsesses, all while filling up sketchbook after sketchbook after sketchbook. She spends every minute she can drawing. Weeks become months, months become years, and she's still drawing. At this point, it's very clear that Fujino sees drawing as a competition with her identity and self-worth on the line. But 2 years go by, and she only draws. She barely spends time with her friends or family, and everyone seems to ask when she'll stop drawing. Her parents are worried about her, she never leaves her room, and her test scores are terrible. Her sister suggests doing something like karate to increase her chances of getting into a good school, but Fujino just tells her to leave her alone. The school newspaper gets handed out like usual, and Fujino realizes something again. Kyomoto is still better than her. She's definitely improved, but so did Kyomoto. And you might think they just draw differently. Kyomoto likes backgrounds and Fujino draws people. But Fujino can't see this. She sits there, just staring at the page. And she quits. She starts spending time with her friends and family, and even joins her sister's karate class. She throws away her sketchbooks, and in the same breath, we see her graduate. For most people, that's where it ends. For me, I've been drawing my whole life, and there have been times where I just stopped because I found other passions or got too busy, or because I just felt I wasn't good enough, because drawing is a waste of time. That's what Fujino thinks, and although she was obsessed with drawing to the point that she neglected her grades, social life, and family, it's still bittersweet to see her just give up. But it makes sense. She only seemed to draw manga for the selfish praise of her classmates, and she is a bratty kid who insults people for things she probably doesn't even understand. But there's something very relatable about that. Because we've all been in situations where we wanted to be the best or to be praised for something that we enjoy doing, but either someone else is just better or everyone just tells you to stop. So Fujino quits. But right after she graduates, her teacher asks her to give Kyomoto her diploma, since she didn't come to school to get it. Fujino begrudgingly agrees and walks to Kyomoto's house. No one answers the door, so she invites herself in and calls for Kyomoto. But then she sees all of Kyomoto's sketchbooks. She's immediately annoyed, and in a fit of childish spite, she decides to draw a manga about how Kyomoto is the world's greatest shut-in and is actually just a pile of rotting bones. She realizes how much of a loser she is for drawing it, but in a stroke of movie logic, the manga strip blows right underneath Kyomoto's door, and she sees it. Fujino immediately runs out of the house, embarrassed and frustrated, but then for the first time, Fujino sees Kyomoto, and she lets loose, praising Fujino for her manga and how big of a fan she is. Kyomoto even begs her for her autograph, but without any paper, she asks her to sign her back. And as she's signing, Kyomoto continues to shower her with praise. She envies Fujino for drawing a page each week and going to school at the same time, and she even goes so far as to call her a manga genius. But when Kyomoto asks why she stopped drawing, Fujino lies and says she was just preparing for a manga competition. Kyomoto is overjoyed and wants nothing more than to see her manga, but as it starts to rain, Fujino says she has to get going home, and Kyomoto waves her goodbye with a huge smile on her face. And then Fujino starts walking, and then she speeds up and starts skipping, and then we get this scene. This scene is more than just Fujino feeling better than Kyomoto. It's more than just the joy of being praised. It's the first time Fujino is admired by someone she looks up to, someone who understands her struggle. You'll notice that when Fujino is complimented on her art, everyone says, "You're so talented." But Kyomoto never says that, because she understands that her skill doesn't come from a gifted artistic ability, but long, hard years of practice. And Fujino can't help but feel vindicated, understood, and connected. And the first thing she does after she sprints home is draw. Because she's not doing it for the praise of her classmates anymore. She's doing it for someone who really understands. She's drawing for Kyomoto. In my very humble opinion, this scene is perfect, not just for the themes I just mentioned, but the music, animation, sound design, voice acting. I could go on and on about every individual aspect of this scene and how it all connects so perfectly. But coming from someone who read the manga for Look Back, I already thought it was an incredibly cinematic and emotional story, but the anime elevates it to such a high level. And I think it does that by paying close attention to the source material, and only adding or changing scenes when it is absolutely necessary to the story. There's no shoehorn side plots, no comedic love triangle, no high school anime bullshit, just a short and concise story that does everything it needs to and values your time. Earlier I said that Fujino lies to Kyomoto, but I believe it was more of a half-lie. While she definitely stopped drawing because she felt inferior to Kyomoto, I imagine Fujino really did have a manga she wanted to make in her head. But the beginning of their relationship is problematic because she has now relinked her self-worth and identity to being better than Kyomoto, and she inadvertently makes her confidence dependent on Kyomoto's status as her lesser. Although they draw manga after manga and grow up as notable artists in the industry, they eventually break apart, because Kyomoto doesn't want to be under her anymore. The moment they get approval for their very own series, Kyomoto confesses that she doesn't want to draw manga with Fujino anymore, because she wants to carve her own path in art school. And what is Fujino's reaction to this? That's fine, you only draw the backgrounds anyway. She goes on to insult Kyomoto for her lack of people skills and anxiety, but it's clearly a way of trying to get her to stay. But Kyomoto holds on to her decision, and there's this moment just before the end of the scene where Fujino shakes her head, just slightly, almost as if she knows what Kyomoto is about to say. I want to get better at drawing. And Fujino never speaks to Kyomoto again. Just like in elementary school, Fujino buries herself into drawing, and through this brief montage, we see her achieve her dream of making a popular serialized manga. But we never get the impression that she's happy doing it. Conversely, when we see Kyomoto at art school, she's presented as a curious student trying to hone her craft, not an overworked manga artist who has a deadline to meet. It's at this point that I think we should talk about this work's author, Tatsuki Fujimoto, a very strange individual who has made some of the weirdest and bizarre manga I've ever read, but simultaneously the most profound and emotional. Look Back is undoubtedly his least controversial work, precisely because I think it's so grounded in reality. I'm talking about the fact that Look Back seems to be a much more direct allegory about Tatsuki Fujimoto's relationship with art and its creation. I mean, his last name is literally just the name of our two main characters. I think it's pretty obvious. I'm not going to pretend that I know the guy, but Fujino is a manga artist who seems to see art as a means to an end, a very realist idea that her manga and its creation is only there to pay the bills and receive praise, which is still a strength, even though it leads to her to forget about those closest to her. Kyomoto is an artist who derives fulfillment from the creation of art itself. Fujino is very headstrong and seems to always achieve what she puts her mind to, and Kyomoto, despite her quiet and anxious demeanor, is actually quite self-actualized in the sense that she doesn't need outside approval for her own self-worth. Art is such a personal endeavor, and we can't help but insert our own emotions into the things we create. And oftentimes the works which show more of ourselves are the ones which feel most real. I think Fujimoto has done this with Look Back, and many of his other works, but I only think you could make an anime about the struggles of creating art this good if you actually experienced it. By the way, if you haven't watched the movie yet, what the fuck are you doing watching this video? I'm gonna spoil the ending, so go watch it. It's only an hour long. Just go watch it. After Fujino finds out Kyomoto was killed by a fellow classmate, she sees that she's been reading her manga. And after flipping through the pages, she finds that manga she drew all those years ago. Fujino blames herself for Kyomoto's death and then says, "Drawing is completely useless," and rips the manga apart. But then we get a different story, one where Kyomoto didn't meet Fujino. She still gets out of her shell and goes to art school, but instead of being killed, Fujino saves her. Also, I love the fact that Fujino's manga is called Shark Kick, and she saves Kyomoto by kicking the guy. It's a really nice detail. Once Kyomoto realizes who she is, she asks why she stopped drawing manga, but Fujino just says she started drawing again. Unlike when they first met before, this exchange puts them both on equal footing. Fujino isn't lying and Kyomoto isn't a starstruck megafan anymore, but I don't think this separate timeline is trying to say that they never should have met and Fujino should have stopped drawing. I think it's saying quite the opposite actually. In this time, both of them are drawing because they want to, not for praise or being better than their peers, and I think this is what Fujino realizes after reading Look Back by Kyomoto. Fujino enters Kyomoto's room and sees posters, questionnaires, and multiple volumes of her manga. I think this is where she realizes the truth about drawing, as she turns around and sees her name written on Kyomoto's back. We see the long hours she spent getting better, but not just from her back this time. We watch them both grow and get better together. We hear Fujino say that she doesn't actually like drawing, but Kyomoto asks why she still does it. Even though she was anxious and quiet, Kyomoto had more confidence in herself than Fujino ever did. So she stands up and walks back to her office with a memory of Kyomoto. Fujino's reason for drawing was always Kyomoto, and it still is, but now it's more than that. Because now she's drawing because she wants to. And I think that's pretty cool.